Alright, so today's video is going to be a pretty straightforward one. I'm just going to be walking through a fight that I had with an Incursus. It's a little longer than the normal Faction Warfare frigate fight. A normal fight runs maybe 30 seconds to a minute to longer is like a minute and a half. This one was a full 5 minute long fight. And that's because my dual tanked, dual prop Hookbill engaged an Incursus that was rep fit that didn't have proper range control fit. So it was just kind of a slugfest where my damage couldn't break his tank, but his damage couldn't break my tank. And it ended in a draw for me at least. So I'm just going to dive right into the fight here. Because of the length of the fight, I don't know if I'm gonna do a full recap, so I'm just gonna let the fight play out instead. So here we go. I've well another thing to note. I've also added this key on-screen keyboard thing to kind of show, at least in this fight. I don't know if I'm gonna use it in future ones, but to show in this fight how I'm going about the keyboard. It doesn't have the function keys, unfortunately, so you can't see me activating the 5 modules at the top. But other than that, you'll see me spamming dscan and heating and unheating modules. So, anyways, here we go. So I'm sitting here in Nenemalia, uh, just camping this plex, and not camping. I'm running this plex. I'm actually actively plexing. There's a few war targets in local, and I've been watching, been spamming dscan for a while. I see this Incursus on scan, so I decided I'd be interested in taking the fight. He's 6.5 away from me here, kilometers, so I burn at him and establish a pretty quick orbit. You'll notice he doesn't have me webbed here, which means that he's probably afterburner, cap booster, scram fit, which means that he's going to be really tanky. So we start slugging it out. He's shooting antimatter at me for a little while here, antimatter or void or something, and he's got a drone out, an acolyte, which is stinging a little bit, but his guns aren't hitting me yet. Um, Now I think they start hitting a little bit, yeah. So because I'm gonna pause right here. Well, no, I'm not gonna pause. So my goal right now is to minimize his damage because I know that my damage will apply perfectly to him. So I was originally heating my rockets. I'm no longer heating the rockets because I don't want to burn them out in this fight that I know is going to take a long time because this guy is active rep fit, but I also want to minimize his DPS. So I make sure that my orbit, I think I originally was orbiting him at 6,000, now I'm orbiting him at 65, and I also just lost scram for a second there. Yeah, so I actually adjust it so that won't happen again. The goal for you when you're in a long drawn out fight is kind of micromanaging just making sure the fight flows the way you want it to. There's a lot of like chaos and confusion in a regular frigate fight, just craziness happening. In a fight like this, though, it's a little more serene, just kind of mellow, and you're just trying to make slight adjustments to the different things you're doing. So in this case, I've locked up this guy's acolyte because I want my goal right now again is to minimize his DPS so that I can eventually break him. I think I've also been spamming dscan occasionally when I'm thinking of it. We don't get interrupted in this fight until the end. Like 4 minutes from now, I think 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm kind of using a mix of my tank, shield and armor. I've got the auto reload off on the armor just in case I need to keep cycling it, but I burned. You'll notice I let my shields disappear first, and then I let them get through most of the armor. I started repping armor, and then I started repping shield. That's because I'm trying to get the most out of both of those reppers again. I only have the initial load and two, I think two spare loads, maybe just one of the cap chargers, cap boosters for the shield booster. So I'm trying to make those last, and I'm actually holding on to this last rep in the armor repper until I can actually get the most out of it, so then I can let that go into reload while I use the shield. So I'm kind of alternating my tank to make that last longer than this guy's cap presumably would, which I honestly don't. I'll have to look at it, but I don't think I would actually be able to cap this guy out. Uh, if he's playing it smart, um, he should be able to, like, if he's got his prop off, like if he's not able to actually get at me and he's just hitting me with null, he might be able to let his tank run longer than normal, longer than expected. But regardless, you'll see I just let my Ansel Repper go into reload here. I still haven't killed his stupid drone because he keeps. A good tactic on his part here is he'll deploy the drone and then he'll watch its hit points, and when it starts getting low, he'll recall it, and that mitigates damage applied to it, so it'll last longer and he'll get more damage out of that. So he's kind of playing the same game I am here. Um, I had, yeah, I think I'm actually I was waiting to shoot at his drone with the rockets, but he recalled it, so now I'm locking onto it again here, and I'm gonna switch over to it pretty quickly. I believe, let's see, how far in the fight are we? Yeah, okay, so right here, this is actually basically the end of the fight for me. It all kind of happens at once. I'm reloading both Ansil Reppers. I'm about to kill his drone, but his Garmer friend here slides into the Plex with us. And so, first thought that goes through my head here is, okay, I need to get out. I don't really want this fight. Like, I don't want to 2v1 these guys right now, especially when I've already eaten through most of my resources. So, first thing I end up doing is I align out. The Incursus is already pretty far away from me. He doesn't have me webbed, and I'm afterburner fit. Well, I'm dual prop fit, so I'm using my afterburner here. So I pretty quickly and easily pull range from him. You'll see I'm already out of scram range effectively, and I heat the afterburner here to put myself even further away from him, as you see me spamming the align key. Uh, and then I do a pretty quick switch over to the micro warp drive with heat to pull away from the Garmer, which I thought was going to engage me, but I was actually it was fortunate enough for me and unfortunate enough for him that one of my corp mates decided to slide into the Plex after the Garmer, so you see him getting caught. Well, not well, yeah, caught right there by those two as I warp off. And I didn't actually notice in the fight until I think a couple minutes later when they are calling GFs in local that he was involved in that fight as well. But I managed to get out unscathed after a pretty long one-on-one. Uh, was a It was a pretty enjoyable fight. Again, just long fights like that turn into kind of a resource management game. The shorter fights are usually like they usually require good piloting, good primarying and stuff like that. But in long fights like this, you need to make the most out of what you have for the duration of the fight. So again, on my part, that was managing my heat, my tank, my even my cap and my rockets. For the Incursus, it was using the right ammo, making sure his drone didn't die, and then I, I, I was gonna look. Uh, Also making sure that his tank was holding up against my incoming damage, which I'm gonna segue a little bit there. Well, not segue, but this fight here kind of highlighted the strengths and weaknesses of the dual prop hookbill fit that I've been toying around with recently. The strengths, of course, being the range control and the ability to catch pretty much anything, and ideally kind of get away from a lot of things with the dual props. But the weakness in this case happens to be uh, damage overall. I think with heat, this ship will only apply 150 DPS, and the dual web micro warp drive fit one will, with rage rockets, will apply 200 or so. You know, a pretty sizable increase. I have to use with this fit, you have to use faction rockets, not rage rockets, because of application issues, because you don't have the dual web. Um, there are probably, not probably, there are certain cases where you can use rage over faction, faction over rage, etc., etc. It's all about ammo choices, but the majority of the time I'm going to end up using lower DPS. Is kind of that's the point here. The weakness of this fit is the low DPS. Also cap management issues, but that didn't come up in this fight. So this fight was kind of a, I don't want to say too rare, but it is pretty rare in faction warfare space to get a lengthy, serene 1v1 fight with somebody in one of the plexes. I have only gotten, I can only specifically remember two other fights that have gotten like this, where it was two, you know, super tanky ships kind of just trying to beat the shit out of each other over time. Like, I think the first one was probably a mirror match Hawk fit, like dual medium ancillary shield boosted Hawks. And the only reason, well, not the only reason, but the main reason I won that fight was because the other guy ran out of cap charges, cap boosters. Um, and then the second one was Jackdaw. Well, no, the Hawk, that same Hawk, I think, against a Jackdaw that was like triple Ansil fit. So really, really tanky setups. And okay, I'm looking at that fit real quick, and I'll include this in the comments for the video. But the Incursus was actually micro warp drive, cap booster, scram fit. So I kind of called it prop scram cap booster. He was running ion blasters and dual reps in the lows. So if I drop that into Python really quick, I'm just gonna see how much damage that guy would have been able to sustain here with, so with max skills using null, because he was firing at me pretty much throughout that fight, and with the scram running and a single armor repper running, he can sustain not that much actually, 41 DPS. But wait, no, that's versus Omni. So switch that over to um, Scourge, because that's what I was hitting him with. Jumps up to, okay, so he had to have been using his cap booster uh, at that point. He was repping through my damage, because on a single repper that ship will rep 120 DPS, and that's without any sort of implants. And so on two reppers he could probably get away with even more, but I still would have beaten him over time, I think, with the overall damage. But, you know, most fights end up getting interrupted by some third party, so you just have to kind of be prepared for that when the time comes. Uh, I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to come back with some sort of fight, and here's a fight. My Hookbill made it out of there in a nice little toasty sort of way. I hope to do another video shortly. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. Have a good one.